Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Horsehead Fantasy Football League's Horsehead Weekly for Week 3. Uh, we're going to start with some non-football news, and I really don't know how else to do this besides just to open up and start with it. So, first thing is divisions and schedules. We had an issue come up, and by we had I mean I screwed up when I was making the divisions and schedules in the league. I made the divisions such that Mike was with uh, Dave and and Matt M, and I put Nick with Jess and Tyler. But I then made the schedule such that Mike played Jess and Tyler twice, and Nick played Matt M and Dave twice. This I thought was a minor issue with me doing just the schedule. That's what I thought it was. And what I should have done is I should have come to Tyler and the rest of the league and said, "Hey guys, I found this issue with the schedule. Is there any way that we can fix this now and make this all work out?" I should have done that. What I did instead is I just made a unilateral decision that, "Oh, I'm the guy who made the schedule. I can fix the schedule." And then I did. The issue is once it got out to everybody that the schedule was changed, people started looking into it and decided, whoa, 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 whoa. This is more than just a schedule change. This is a divisional issue that is different than the division we decided on earlier. And yeah, I said, well, I had, a bunch of people complaining about the way that the schedule was set up and the divisions were set up and blah, blah. So I think we made some changes. But that doesn't matter. I should have either done it correctly the first time, which is the best way to do it, or when I found out that there was an issue, I should have simply sat down and said to everybody, "Hey, I made a mistake. Let's work on coming up with the best solution for it," which I think we did come to eventually, which was to keep it as it was because there was that issue with all of that. And Mike brought up the point that he's been deciding who he's trading with based on his divisions that he took off the ESPN thing. And Nick, who is the other party who was in the swap, said he didn't really care. He really didn't care. He was like, whatever, dude. Like, let's just move on with our lives. Um, Now, Tyler and Jess and Dave and Matt M, they're also parties to this because it is their divisions that are being changed. Now they have different opponents than they may have originally thought that they had. But so I understand Tyler's points that this is something that we agreed on months ago, something we should keep up with and keep moving forward with. But I think that when I put up the poll, everyone just said, "Hey, let's keep it the way that it is already on ESPN," because I think that's more likely what people would be looking at for information as to who's in what divisions when they care about that, rather than a Google Doc that's over a month old or a video that I put out and I flash up on the screen quick. These are who's in whose division. Um, is it correct? I don't know. You can't know. But Tyler definitely has some good points for that. Um, which then brings us on to the next point, which is Tyler has decided he would like to step down as commissioner because he feels like the league is not being managed by him anymore. Which I understand. I started this year trying to help Tyler out, saying, "Hey, I have a bunch of time at work doing nothing. If you want, I know we're doing custom schedules this year because we decided what weeks are going to do what. Let me know. I'll come in. I'll adjust all the schedules for everybody, and everything will work out good." And he said, "Cool. Yeah, thanks. I'll send you the information on everything, and I'll let you as a league manager, and you can do that." Um, and since then, I've been slowly doing a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more, and now it's to the point where he feels like he's not running the league. I'm kind of running the league, and even though I don't want the position, Um, I feel like if Tyler is going to step down and he wants to give it to me because I've already been doing some of these functions, then I'll take it. I can understand Tyler's frustrations with the league. Um, the first thing being on Monday night when there was a trade agreed upon. A few hours later, he decided that he didn't want to be a part of the trade. With Nick and I, it was a three-way agreement, and he said, "No, I don't want to be part of this anymore. I want out because I think OBJ is crap." Well, at that point, it then became an issue of, well, can you back out at that point? And we already, I had the opinion of come to a firm agreement, short of Odell going out and breaking a leg, we would continue forward. But he does. I can also understand how he could have saw it his way, which is this is not what I want. OBJ was playing not very well. He also wasn't playing a lot of snaps. The Giants look like garbage, and he also did say a couple of times earlier before we all said, "Yeah, I'm in, I'm in, I'm in," that he wants to see how OBJ plays tonight before he commits. So I can understand that he already had those reservations, but the way that we talked later on, he sounded like he wanted to go through with it, and we ended up going through with it. I ended up taking OBJ back and then trading him to Nick. So in the end, it didn't matter. Maybe he wanted to keep Ty Montgomery as well because he's a very good player. I don't know what's going on in Tyler's head. I can only say what I saw in the text and how it went down. But when he tried to back out, Nick and I told him, no, we're not backing out. We're sticking with it. I don't know if it's how this is going to play out, but what I do know is that for now, he has decided to call me the commissioner because of not only that, but also everything that went down today with me making the changes unilaterally without consulting him or the league, which to me, I would say, well, no, I'm taking you off a league manager. I'm reducing you down to status of player, and I'm going to, have a conversation about this later. He's decided instead to give me the reins, and hopefully I can be a just leader in the future, and I'll try to learn from this experience and not cause this big of an issue. And another thing that might be causing him some stress is he also has to handle all the finances, which means that people need to pay their dues, and not everyone has. So for league dues, please Square Cash me. I'm at Dalla Mark Minnick, and it's really important that you get your league dues in. I'm not going to put any penalties on like tomorrow or anything like that, because that's insane. But in a couple weeks, maybe I'll start docking people's fab budget or something, like, because we need to have some kind of mechanism to get dues in if they're not in soon. Because I don't want it to be like last season where somebody was out of the playoffs and Tyler was trying to run them down for money at the end. I don't want to go through that. So please, and I'm not going to make that decision unilaterally either. I'm going to go to the league and say, hey guys, people still haven't paid their dues. What is a fair way for us to kind of force them to pay the dues if they would like to stay in the league? Because I don't know exactly how we're going to handle that going forward. So yeah, I think that with all this that's been said, and I've been talking for how long now? 10 minutes almost. Something that we have to remember in this league is we are here to relax, have fun with our friends, and play fantasy football. That's what we're doing here. We're not managing multi-billion-dollar football franchises. We're not running around, with thousands of dollars in this. Yes, it's $100. Yes, getting a couple $100 at the end of the year is great, and you'd love to have it, and it does add that extra incentive to try your best and to work hard. But at the same time, we have to remember that what we're doing here is we're playing a game for fun with friends. We're not, because I've seen a lot of tempers flaring over the last week or two, and I think we all just have to realize that, we just need to try to do our best to understand that this is a game that we're playing. Yes, it's $100 game, but it's not like anyone's livelihood is hinging on that $100. If it is, I'm sorry that you're in that situation and you're in this league, but maybe you shouldn't have made that kind of commitment to the league and spent that $100 that you couldn't afford to lose, because I think that's how you have to go about this. Um, but yeah, so just as a whole for this non-football news segment, which I know is very heavy and it's gone a little bit rambly, but everyone just try to take a deep breath, relax, have fun, and try to enjoy the league. And if the way you enjoy the league is not making a lot of trades, not being very active, and just kind of having fun doing what you can, then do that. Do that and have as much fun as you can. Do whatever you need in the league to have as much fun as you can. If that's, whatever that is, go for it. But the way I look at this league is it's a place to go to relax and have fun. And I've fallen victim to it. I know Malcolm and Tyler and Nick and a few other people have fallen victim to it just this week, where we've got a little bit heated and we've started saying things and doing things. So everyone, just do me a favor and try to relax. So now that I've talked about relaxation for, 3 minutes, hopefully everyone's a little bit more calm now that I've told you to just fucking relax. So yeah. So let's go in to last week. Now that we have all the heavy stuff out of the way, we have last week's recap, and it shows that I ended up running into a bandsaw playing up against Tyler, and I got destroyed, despite putting up the third highest point total in the league this week. I ended up getting destroyed, which happens. It's the way that the leagues like this go sometimes. On the flip side of it, so you have two of the top three playing in one sense, in one game, and in the other two other games, as you see directly below them, you have Doug and Jess and Mac and Mike all playing, and they were the bottom four, and they all played each other. So Mike and Jess squeaking out wins when they were the third and fourth worst team, and Doug and Mac, I mean, they probably weren't winning anyways, but it hurts a lot to see that they played against subpar teams and ended up not being able to put up the points to take them out. So I think just thought that was a little bit of an interesting quirk to this week, because you had, two of the top three and the bottom four all just kind of mashed together. So, interesting little way it worked out. In other news, we had Matt M squeaking out against Gerald, Matt S beating Nick after his heroic comeback fell short, and Dave beat James to put James to 0-2, which brings us to our standings, where we find everyone at 1-1 besides James, who I just mentioned was 0-2, and Jess, who is currently sitting at 2-0. So, yeah, a lot of parity in this league, as is to be expected. I think most years it's a little bit more spread out than this at this point, but we tend to have a lot of players clumped around 500, and I don't see why that should change moving forward. So we now move on to the Eliminator, which is separate from standings. It's completely individually on its own. If you're eliminated from the Eliminator, you are still in the league. There was a little bit of confusion with that last week, where some people didn't understand how it worked. So the Eliminator is a standalone contest. It's entirely by itself, and it runs for as long as it takes until we are down to one player left. And the winner of the Eliminator, that last man standing or woman standing, is awarded $50. That's it, plain simple, easy peasy, lemon squeezy. We're all set. Now, we also have a second week in it, which means congratulations to Mike. You have the first team to have 2 strikes. Narrowly avoiding his second strike was James, beating Jess out by 6 points, or else he would have had 2 strikes and Jess would have been sitting clean so far, which puts Matt M, Dave M, James, Jess, Doug, and Malcolm all at 1 strike, with the remaining 5 sitting atop clean without any issues as of yet. But, this will get more interesting later on, but as of right now, one person is on the chopping block, and that is Mike. Good luck to Mike this week. Hopefully he can stave off elimination for another week, but if not, then you will be eliminated. So keep out of that bottom 4, buddy. Next up, we have the waiver wire. That's a weird inflection to put on my voice. So this week in the waiver wire, Nick went all in on Evan Ingram because of a trade deal that was awkwardly backed out of by me. Uh, I backed out of it before we had any issues, before we had like come to an actual agreement, and I was like, I don't want to do it. No, don't put in the $15 bid. But he was in a meeting, so he did it, and then I ended up going through with the trade later on, anyways, or at least a similar trade to what we were trying to come to an agreement on. So I do feel bad for him, but that's the way that it goes. Number two was Rashard Higgins, the Cleveland wide receiver, who had $10 from Dave, $7 from Tyler, and then I think it was $1 from Malcolm. So a close bid war at the top, and poor Malcolm, I think he just thought he was going to pay attention to the like fourth string Cleveland wide receiver. Well, apparently Dave and Tyler did. Carson Wentz went for 8. Samaje Perine went for 7. I think those are both really solid pickups. Nick ended up picking up Foreman, who may be able to split time moving forward with Lamar Miller. I picked up Jalen Richard, who I promptly then traded to Nick. I think Richard is one of those players that's going to be very good if he ends up getting the work and playing behind a 30-something-year-old who didn't play football last year. Probably not the worst place to be, especially with Oakland being as good of an offensive line as it is. Then we have Fletcher Cox, Trevor Siemian, Jamarcus Joyner, DeMarcus Lawrence, Jatavis Brown. So just a couple people getting picked up. And then we get to some really interesting stuff because we had, I think it was 3 players, Jordan Poyer, Miles Jack, and Matthias Farley, all had ties, which were broken by the who is the worst record. So Tyler and Matt all ended up losing because Mike and James both had worse records than them. It's kind of hard to quantify at this point in the league, but that's how it ended up going down. A bunch of trades were also made. We had a 3-way trade at the bottom where you can see Tyler, Matt, M, and Jess all got involved in some stuff. And then we had a couple other trades go on. It was a lot of back and forth. The 3-way trade that I mentioned earlier between Nick, Tyler, and myself is the top left and the one directly below it. And then everything else just kind of happened throughout the week. And I don't know. It's an interesting week for trades. A lot of big name players being moved around. A lot of people trying to buy low, sell high. And we'll see who ended up getting out of the stock before it went bad and who ended up buying stock that was garbage as it was going down. Who knows? You never do. So we'll see how all this plays out next week. And now we are on to the power rankings. The game of the week and the special segment will be at the end. But right now we're on the power rankings, and we're going to start off with the Morari, the Weavers of Fate. You might recognize these 3 lovely ghouls from the Hercules cartoon and animated series. And we're going to start off with Mike. Mike is the first of the Weavers of Fate because I feel like he's one of the 3 people who you play against them and you're like, yeah, their team's not great, but they could always go off. Like, he has high talented players and he's riding that garbage rocket. So he could easily just start taking games off of people, come out of nowhere, and suddenly he's deciding, who's going to the playoffs, or he's riding the garbage rocket to the playoffs himself. So I think it's a very interesting spot that Mike's in, and I don't think he's going to stay at the bottom for long because if you look at his team, he has, Mike Evans, who I think is going to be a really good talent. James Winston throwing to him, so he's got that pair going on. He's got Allen and Carson and, West. And I think he's got another Baltimore player. Yeah, Javorius Allen. He's got a lot of people who can go off and can make a name for themselves and really be that big breakout. And on top of that, he has really solid other players that are, maybe older, but definitely very good with your Frank Gores and your Larry Fitzgerald. I think he's got a really good team, and it's just a matter of time before these players start doing what what they could do. And all he needs is 1 or 2 to break out, and he's going to start shooting up to the middle of the rankings. And maybe if he can get really lucky, he can find himself, making himself up into that, second tier. But he's got a long way to climb, so good luck to him. Next up, we have James. Oh, I just noticed I have their last week's rankings on here. Too bad you don't get to know what your rankings were from last week unless you go back and watch the video because I was too busy having a crisis this morning with trying to figure out what the hell's going on with the league and if Tyler's trying to not be the commissioner and why am I the guy now and I'm sorry and I feel like crap. So guess what? You don't get your last week's rankings. Deal with it. So James, he's got this Cousins to Pryor thing, and it just isn't working out right now. DeMarco Murray got hurt. His team needs help, but he still has Le'Veon Bell, who I think is the best player in the league. I don't think anyone would argue with that right now. So just having him makes him be a little bit higher than Mike. Sorry, Mike, but he just has that one player that's really great. I think, again, he's in a similar situation where he's got some players that could do some things. Hogan from New England could become one of Brady's favorite targets. You never know. Cohen, if Howard ends up going down for anything long term, Cohen's going to be the lead guy there, and we've seen what can happen with that. Murray gets healthy and becomes the Murray of old, then all of a sudden he's going to be great. So you don't really know with a lot of these players what could happen, but I think he's got a good chance of getting some players to do good. I think at this point in the season, you're going to hear me say this for every team. Every team has players that could be studs. Every team has players that could be great. It's just a matter of time. We just have to get there with them. Which brings us now to Doug, who has Kelsey as his lone standout, which isn't great. He also has a lot of players on his team that didn't hit, that he was kind of betting on would break out or whatever. That didn't end up working out, and he's got a hurt Olsen on his bench. So, in a couple weeks, he can throw Greg Olsen in when Cam's really hurting and really needs someone to throw to. Because right now he's down to basically just Kelvin Benjamin because McCaffrey's not quite working out yet. I think that's going to be great. I think, he can sell him high or sell Travis Kelce or whatever he needs to do in a couple weeks to be great, to get another great player. But right now he's riding like your Riddicks, your Millers, your Baldwins, Powell, Watkins, Williams, P. Ryan. Like these are all players that a lot of people were talking about in the offseason as they could be guys who come in and do great things. And they haven't worked out just yet, but some of the people I think are still going to be great. I don't want to tip my hand or anything, but I think a bunch of these players, they're going to end up being great. They're going to do really good things, but for now, who really knows what they're going to do? So good luck to Doug as well. So those are your three Weavers of Fate. Those are picked because, as I said in Mike's thing, they have the option to just kind of go off in some weeks and just kind of really pick it who's going to end up making the playoffs. Next up, we have Eris, the god of discord and strife. I picked Eris as the first of the true gods because it's just funny to say these are people who have discord and strife going on. That's who you got to pray to, guys, if you want it to go away, I think. We're going to start off with Matt M. He has this weird thing where the later his player was picked, the better they're being, which is, I think, really cool. He put up some real big points last week thanks to Ertz and a couple of other of his players, and I feel like this is a team that could be boom bust because, you don't know when Chris Thompson's going to go off or Golden Tate or Emmanuel Sanders. Leonard Fournette, he's been good, but can he keep it up, or is he going to falter? What's he going to be up to? So I think this is a really interesting team, and I think it's definitely a tier above those other teams who have like one player who you can look at and say, that's a really good football player. The rest of the team is kind of meh. He's got Leonard Fournette, he's got Derek Carr, he's got Zach Ertz, players who I think are going to be week in, week out production machines. They're just going to keep pumping out the points for him, and I think that's what's separating these two tiers. So I think his team's pretty good, and I wouldn't be surprised if he can go on a run with these guys if McCaffrey and Cam start clicking or any number of other players start really catching on. Next up, we have Jess, who has some tight end troubles, and I hate Tom Brady, but magically Lynch isn't dead. Marshawn Lynch going out there, putting up 10 points for the last 2 weeks, I think is really quite something. I didn't think he was going to be able to pull that off. I thought he was kind of toasted, but here we are. Tom Brady went off last week, as we all know, and besides that, I mean, her team isn't great. I don't like Jordan Reed. He's too much of an injury risk for me to want him around. And otherwise, which is the whole tight end trouble issue, Demaryius Thomas, I think, is probably her best offensive player short of Amari Cooper. But yeah, I think she's got a good setup of a team, but again, she's got like three players who I'm like, oh, these are really good players, and Brady, Cooper, and Thomas. But the rest of the team, I'm a little bit worried about. I still think Lynch isn't going to be able to keep this up the whole season. When you look at Jordan Reed, I think he's an injury risk. But hey, who knows? Maybe she's got the formula like she did last year, where she can make the playoffs and just be like, hey, I'm here, and then who knows? Because I think that's one of the things with this league. If you, all you have to do is make the playoffs, because you never know what's going to happen those last 3 weeks. Next up, just rounding out the bottom half, we have Dave. We have to figure out which Dave is the real Dave. He has less than 90 points one week and then 127 the next week. He's got Howard hurt, who is one of his two top picks, but Freeman's tearing it up, so that's really cool to see. He's got one, that double, I think he had the turn, so he's looking pretty good at that. And Malcolm, he ended up triggering by taking that wide receiver from Higgins. So hopefully Higgins, doesn't end up breaking Malcolm. But, just to reiterate, it's just a game. We're just here to have fun. Let's try to relax, guys. Anyways, moving on to Dave's team. He also has this little core of really good players in Breeze, Freeman, and Howard. The issue, again, the rest of the team. I mean, you got Delaney Walker, who had a rushing touchdown last week. What's that about? Martavis Bryant, who has either been great or garbage the first 2 weeks. T.Y. Hilton, who will be good later on, but not good now. So he's got a bunch of nonsense going on his team, same as the other people in this tier. Couple really solid players that you can build the team around, and then the rest of the team is just kind of guys who play football. They're good, but they're not great. Let's see how they work out. So that brings us into this tier, where it's about 3 players who are really kind of good. And we move on to the Dionysus tier, who is the god of madness and drink. As you can see here, making it rain on Herc, how he do. And we get to Malcolm, to which I have to say, what's happening? You have 128 points the first week, and then you go down to 70. Now, you also had 3 running backs that you're starting right now who were outrushed by Blake Bortles. That's kind of tough. So you really do have a prove it week this week when you face a divisional opponent in, I think it's Matt S. So you really have to do something here, because you gotta pick which way you're gonna break and show it this week, because this is a divisional game. That's how this week's gonna work for a lot of people. And with his team, he has a bunch of, I think, really solid players. He's got J.J. Watt, one of the few defensive players who I think is worth even discussing at this moment. He's got Tyreek Hill, who has shown he can be absolutely fantastic. Jordy Nelson, Ezekiel Elliott, and Matthew Stafford. So he's got a bunch of super high-powered players. A little bit more than the lesser tier, but we'll see what he does. I mean, Zeke still has the possibility of suspension looming, and he also only put up 9 rushing yards last week. Crow, similar rushing totals last week, not doing really well. And doubling down on the Cleveland running backs in a game. I mean, Indianapolis, you could do a lot better of a defense to play against, but still, it's a little bit rough. So we'll see how he does. And this brings me to his opponent for this week, Matt S., who, as I said, has a big game this week. And his team, I think, has more studs than some of the teams ahead of it. I don't think that's true, because I'm remembering who the top 4 teams are. He has a bunch of studs, but some of them are underperforming. You have A.J. Green, who's underperforming, averaging 10 points per game. Underperforming is maybe not the right word for it, but that's what he's doing. You had Gurley and Hyde, who were doing great, but then you have Newton, who's not doing that great. Benjamin, some people were saying, this is his year, his comeback. Well, it's not. Alshon Jeffrey has a prove-it deal with Philly. He's put up numbers one week, but not the other. Willie Snead sitting on the bench. I think he has a team that could be really, really good. The issue with it is he just needs some of these studs to start actually performing to their potential, and he could easily jump up into the next tier. But for now, this is where he sits, because it's kind of hard to look at players like A.J. Green and be like, oh, man, no, he's definitely a stud. Well, yeah, he's a stud, but he hasn't shown it this year. He's had 2 meh games. His, he's got a new offensive coordinator now coming in. It's going to be interesting to see how that works out. Which brings us up to the A class, the Hades God of the Underworld class. This is because these are people who will damn you if you play against them. Boom. Because that's how it works. You have on Nick's team, who is in this here, you have stud wide receivers with Brown and OBJ. That's 2 of the top 3 wide receivers for the rest of the season for me. And everything else is reasonable around them. Luck is lurking in his IR spot when he comes back. If he ends up being Luck, then that's going to be insane. But in the meantime, you still have Roethlisberger, who's putting up 20 points a game. His running backs are Ingram and Cook, who both, I think, could end up being a lot better once the teams realize that that old guy behind them in the depth chart shouldn't touch the ball anymore. With Ingram getting touches given to Peterson and Cook giving touches up to Murray, even though it's not a lot, they're still annoying. But yeah, I feel like he just has a bunch of like super high-powered studs on his team, and a bunch of players around him that are really like up in that upper echelon where they're coming up on, when I say stud, I mean like top 5 at a position. Maybe not top 5, but like definitely like in that up echelon. I could see Cook and Ingram breaking out up into there. I could see Jack Doyle being a top 5 guy for the rest of the season. So, who knows what's going to happen with these players, but I really like his team. And the other team that I really like is Gerald. He is kind of the opposite of Nick because he's got the stud running backs with some really good upside wide receivers. And I think he's just a quarterback away from being up in that S class. Marcus Mariota is very good, but he hasn't really put up the numbers the first 2 weeks. The first week he put up good numbers, but some people thought it was a little bit fluky. This week he didn't put up as good of numbers. Now he has Seattle, which is definitely not going to be great. But he's got Ajayi and McCoy, who I think are both absolutely insane. He's got the top wide receiver at the moment in Crabtree, and a top 10 guy in Hopkins, who, if he keeps getting fed the ball, both those guys get fed the ball the way they've been being fed, they're going to be great. He's also got J.J. Nelson, who's the number 2. That's interesting. All right, the number 2 wide receiver. He's got the number 1 and number 2 wide receiver on his team. So yeah, no, that's a really good team, and it's, I think he's just maybe 1 or 2 players away from just being absolutely immaculate. Which brings us up to Zeus and Hera, the top 2 of the league, the S-class players, and it starts off with me, aka Hera, and I am Hera because Tyler did to me this week what Zeus did to everything. You can look up some Greek lore to figure that one out. And my team is great, and I have a tight end with a lot of upside. My RE2's got a ton of upside, and I got a couple of them. And my quarterback could end up becoming that top 5 guy that I've been hoping he would be for the last 2 years. But, I mean, my team is far from perfection. I got Russell Wilson, who's not performing as well. I'm leaning on either the Tampa Bay guys, one of them to break out, Joe Mixon or Doug Martin, Derrick Henry. Like, these are the people I'm kind of relying on to break out and be my, hopefully an RB1. But I don't really know. I got Julio and Brandon Cooks as my wide receivers with Dez and Jarvis Landry, so I'm kind of overloaded there. Would love to get rid of Julio Jones if anyone wants him. I have him as the number 2 wide receiver, but I'm beginning to look at my team and be like, I kind of would rather have a good running back. But hey, who knows what's going to happen with that. But that's what my team looks like. I don't want to talk too much about it because I already know, and everyone's just clicking through it. And finally, we have Zeus. He doesn't have a player on his team starting that isn't kind of like a stud. He's got 5 players in my top 20 rest of season. That's all players. That's all, every single player in the league I have ranked rest of season. He's got 5 of my top 20. That's stupid. That's 5 picks in the first 2 rounds if we were doing a redraft right now. And he could legitimately start a team where 8th is the worst ranking in his team so far this season. And that's nuts to me. That's just nutty. I mean, look at this team. Aaron Rodgers, top 2 quarterback. Melvin Gordon, I have him top 5. Kareem Hunt, he's approaching that conversation with top 5. Michael Thomas, I still think he's top 10. Keenan Allen, I think he's top 12. Rob Gronkowski, still number 1. C.J. Anderson, he's up there in that top 12 conversation. And then he's got the best linebacker so far, the fourth best defensive person for line, and Harrison Smith, who I think is just kind of been having a rough time of it. I think he's a lot better than 28th. And then you look down here, you see he's got the backups and he's got other good players. His team's just stacked. His team is just legitimately stacked right now. I don't know what to do about it besides complain that he's got a team that's OP, but he just makes it work for himself. So hey, good for you, Tyler, man. You made it happen. And I could easily put you in a tier by yourself, but I really want to make the Zeus and hair joke. So that brings us to the game of the week this week, which is on the left side, Malcolm, and on the right side, Matt S. They're in the same tier. They're fighting a divisional game. I think they both have teams that could put up a ton of points. We could easily see like 130 to 133, something along those lines. So good luck to both of those teams in this week's game of the week. I'm going to be watching that one with a lot of interest, especially because I am in the conference with you. So it'll be interesting to see who ends up trying to rise out of that division. And this brings us on to the divisional breakdown. We have a bunch of divisional games this week, and we're going to start off with Skull House, where we have myself, Gerald, and Doug. I'm in second, Gerald's in third, Doug's in 10th. And this is a team brought together by brotherhood. You know, we have that Phi Cap heart and soul inside of us burning to try to push us forward. We're a little bit top-heavy, most top-heavy in the division with a second and a third and a 10th. But and I think what's going to end up happening is Mark and Jerry are going to end up dueling it out for a bye with maybe like, Malcolm or one of the other two players in the other division kind of maybe rising up. We'll see what happens. And Doug, but hey, Doug, he just needs to make like one or two good moves, and he's caught up, and it's there. And everybody is so close still right now, it's a bit ridiculous. This now brings us to Kathy's kids, the other side of the conference. These are kids brought together by Kathy, and she raised them, and she treats them well, and she knows that James is the worst, which is why he's 11th, and Matt S. and Mac are 5 and 6th. This is the most even division at the moment. It's very, you got 5, 6, and 11th, so they're all kind of clumped together near like middle bottom. And I think any of these teams can be any other one of the teams in any given week. So I think, again, James is very much on the hunt for this league, or for this division. Next up, we have the team brought together by love, and this unholy little threesome of Tyler, Nick, and Jess. So it is, at the moment, Tyler's division. I don't think anyone would disagree. Tyler has the best team in the league at the moment. But even though it is Tyler's division, Nick and Jess could catch up. I mean, Nick's been making a bunch of moves. Jess has been quietly assembling a team of players who, as I said, were underperforming a little bit, but who knows? They could break, she could get those players to start breaking out, start doing good things. Suddenly she's shooting up the rankings, and Tyler has, to actually play football games against people instead of just being able to, hang his hat on, oh, I'm just going to be able to take my division, take my conference, take a bye, and just go make some money. So it'll be really interesting how this works out. Brings us to the other half of that conference, the outsiders. We have Dave, Matt, and Mike. This is a team brought together by family. They're family. They're a family of friends and family. Family. I'm just going to keep saying family until I figure what I want to say next. Okay, family. This is the softest division at the moment. Maybe a little bit more compact than the other one that I said was the most compact league, or one in the division. But you have Mike sitting at 12th, who I could totally see a scenario where Mike plays against Tyler and beats him. And I don't think that would happen 50-50, but I think he could definitely take 20% of games off of Tyler, maybe 30% of games off of Tyler. Maybe not. I don't know. I'm not making odds, but I think that anyone here could end up going to the playoffs, and I also think that they could maybe play Heartbreaker and just be on the other end, just a middling division that just isn't that good, and they end up sending a bad team to the playoffs because every division gets a spot. And as of right now, the winner should be the only team in the playoffs, but you never know what could happen. Mike, Matt M, and Dave, they all have decent teams. They could all take off at any moment and soar into the clouds and end up, taking the league by storm. So that's it for this week, and I'll see you guys next week. Sorry we started off so heavy. Hopefully everything got a little bit more chill as the video went on. But yeah, I just had to get those feelings out at the beginning, with those first 10 minutes of just being like, hey guys, just we need to relax, we need to have fun, we need to try to enjoy this league because this is how a lot of us interact with each other. I don't really spend a lot of time talking to anyone in the league that much outside of the league, which I think is a problem with me. I should definitely try to become closer with you guys, like outside of the league. I've been trying to spend more time with like James, doing like games and stuff like that. But who knows? I really want to I really want this league to be something that everyone can come to and enjoy, and you're not spending all of your time worrying about, oh no, my players aren't as good as these other guys, or I made a bad trade, or you know somebody's screwing up the schedule in the divisions and making it not fun. Um, Mark. But yeah, no. So hopefully moving forward, we can try to keep this in perspective that this is just $100 league. This isn't something worth, ruining friendships or getting upset or anything like that over. I think this is something that we just need to kind of relax, take some time, and just remember that we're just here to have fun. We're all friends here. No one's trying to backstab or screw anybody over. So let's just do our best and just have some fun, guys. Okay. And I'll be back next week with some more interesting, fun stuff in this video. And hopefully I don't have to spend the first 10 minutes apologizing. Bye.